Hey, so it's getting colder outside, and that's kind of irrelevant. But what is relevant is I was eating pecan pie the other day, and I really think it's just the bee's knees. I was thinking, oh boy, this is the cat's pajamas. It's the snake's hips. And I was really starting to wonder, where the hell do those phrases come from? Like, what are they? I kind of even forgot what the word idiom was. I was like, what are these phrases? What do they mean? Where do they come from? And I was just a little curious, so I did a little bit of digging, and I started to look more into idioms as a whole, as to where they all seem to generate from. And obviously, I couldn't get to every single one of them because Lord knows how many there are. But I just started to dig into a few, and so let's get into them, right? So starting off with the bee's knees, and this will kind of be the same as the cat's pajamas and the snake's hips and stuff like that. Well, sort of the same. Anyway, so the bee's knees essentially started in around the 1800s, but originally back then it was meant to mean something small and insignificant. So they would say, oh, that's just the bee's knees. It's something that's pointless and, irrelevant to a topic. However, in the 1920s, the flapper movement changed the game. They started saying the bee's knees is something that's awesome. It was spectacular. And that's when they also started using other idiotic idioms like the snake's hips and the cat's pajamas and so on and so forth, just to describe things as cool. Because there were a couple of cool cats using words that their moms and pops didn't use. So after I found out those guys, I was like, let me look into some others. And it's kind of got me on a splurge of things. So next we got a heart of gold, right? And I don't even think of these things as idioms, right? They're just things that, it's just a heart of gold, But no, it's an idiom. Obviously, you moron, you dingus. But it's simple enough, It's a person with a good soul. It's generally used to describe someone that might have some unsavory characteristics. He's got a heart of gold. And I always thought this was just a thing, but apparently it goes all the way back to Shakespeare, who made this bad boy up. So thanks for that, pal. Next one I was looking into, which I found quite interesting, was run amok. Because where the hell does that come from? Run amok. I'm running amok. Someone's running amok. They're just running amok. And we generally use it as, something, anything, or someone behaving in reckless abandon. Could be about anything, whether it just be something breaking down or causing havoc in some way to you. But this comes from Southeast Asia, specifically meaning someone that's just breaking out in violent behavior to anyone around them. Interestingly enough, amok behavior is actually listed in the DSM with the Southeastern Asian description. DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders, which makes it interesting that they actually have amok in there, but it's not really a diagnosis as much as it is more of a culturally bound syndrome, but it has to do with people just going nuts and violently attacking people out of nowhere. Next one I was looking into was elbow room. This one's simple enough, you're in a crowded space. Some people are invading your personal space. You want a little elbow room. It can also be applied in a metaphorical sense, which was the way it was actually originally used when it was originally written by Shakespeare. So there's that. Next thing I was looking into was a baker's dozen, right? And I feel like this is pretty common knowledge that a baker's dozen just refers to 13 of something, because a dozen is 12 items. But a baker's dozen is, they just throw a 13 in there for good measure. And I always thought that was just bakers. I think of bakers as like these jolly beings that just make baked goods. So I'm like, yeah, they throw in a 13th, to have a good time. But it gets a bit sinister, because you see, back in the 13th century, these bakers needed to cut some corners. They needed to make some more bread. They wanted to stack their dough. So what they would do is that they would cut back on supplies. That would make some of the breads a little smaller. So if they had a batch of 12 cupcakes that were coming out, someone might notice that they were looking a little bit light, looking a little bit smaller. So what they did, and that was illegal because they had standard sizes of things and laws that they had to abide by. So what these bakers would do would just throw in a 13th little item so that people would not really have any backlash about the items being smaller, so they could gotta get around that and maybe make some bread along the way. And I know what you're thinking, who cares about these idioms? I care about these idioms. I'm very emotional about these idioms. Some might say I even wear my heart on my sleeve in regards to idioms. Which is, in fact, the next thing that we're going to be talking about. Where the hell does wear your heart on your sleeve come from? Well, there's two parts to this. In the medieval times, jousters, when they're on their horse about to go throw a stick at some other dude on a horse, they would commonly have, a token of some favored lady of the court that they were trying to flex for in their little jousting round. So they would put something like that, whether it be like her kerchief or something around their arm, right? And Shakespeare, got that and he made the phrase, wear your heart on your sleeve. It can't really be confirmed that the jousting thing is where it came from. It's a possible thing. But Shakespeare made wear your heart on your sleeve. So, all right, I think we're looking at a trend here. So considering Shakespeare made a whole bunch of things, maybe someone should butter him up, get him to make some new ones, which brings us to butter him up. Where the hell did that come from? So you see, buttering someone up came from ancient Indian customs, apparently, where they would be throwing bowls of clarified butter at statues of gods in order to seek favor, which I think is phenomenal, and I think it's something that should still be practiced, except instead of statues, I think we should just throw butter at people. I feel like it would be a cool, a fun thing to do, a good way to meet somebody like, hey, how you doing? Butter to the face. Wow, that guy cares about me. That is great. Or that could just be one way to, meet someone and make an enemy in one fell swoop, which is what you'd probably be doing, which leads us to one fell swoop. Where did this come from? I don't even think of these things as coming from anywhere, which is what's kind of dumb on my end. Like, things are created, Jeff. They don't just exist without creation. But anyways, one fell swoop is you got to do a few things, right? You might as well get them all done at once. Just get them done in one fell swoop. And this puppy is full of bird imagery. And this goes all the way back to the time of Macbeth, because it was written in Macbeth, because it was written by Shakespeare. So honestly, I know it's kind of a little boring. I was getting pretty upset by all of this. I thought there wasn't going to be so much Shakespeare in this video, but I got served my humble pie. And that brings us to humble pie. Humble pie goes back to the Middle Ages when they were coming back from a fine hunting excursion, right? And all the higher status members of the party would, get served the fine cuts of beef. They would be whining and dining with the best things to eat. While, the lower status members of the party, they would get served this, what they called this humble pie, which was just a pie made and had filling of, the innards and less favorable parts of the kills that they had. And eventually that just turned into humble pie, which I feel like I've been eating this entire time I've been researching idioms. So there's that. But don't worry, every dog has its day. Where does that come from, right? So this one's pretty interesting. It really just means, eventually everyone will get what they want, even if it's short-lived. This dates back to a story about a legendary Greek playwright named Euripides. And the story goes that he was killed by a pack of dogs that were released upon him as an act of revenge, or at least the story goes. The story was then heard, and then the line, and a dog will have his day, was written in Hamlet because Shakespeare came up with this one too. So, all right. Pissing me off a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. How about Saved by the Bell? The iconic TV show. Safe to say this one was coined in the 90s by good old Zack and Screech, baby. No, it's not, obviously. Saved by the Bell goes back to a much further and much more frightening time where people could be buried alive. So they would do is put a little special coffin with a little string in there that would go up to a bell. So that way, if someone's buried alive and they wake up from their little rough nap that they had, a little hungover after a Friday night, they wake up in a coffin, they just start ringing the bell. And the Undertaker, will go and save the day, be a hero, which would make me wonder how difficult an Undertaker's job might be if it was, a quite windy night and all these bells are going off and he's got to dig up 30 graves to see a bunch of rotting corpses and feel pretty stupid. But anyway, that's just the job of an Undertaker, not all that glitters is gold. So next up is all that glitters isn't gold. And that's simple enough. Not everything is cracked up to what it's supposed to be or what you think it might be, right? This was originally derived by a French monk who had a line that said, "Don't hold everything gold that shines like gold." But someone else came along the way and improved it to be not all that glistens is gold, which I think is a better line. But it pisses me off that someone else was Shakespeare, so... Can someone stop this guy, please? All right, how about waking up on the wrong side of the bed, Well, back in the day, they thought the left side of the body or the left side of anything was pretty much sinister. So, sorry to my left-handed friends out there. You are the devil. And to ward off evil, innkeepers would, push the bed, so the left side of the bed was up against the wall. That way, everybody would be forced to wake up on the right side of the bed. So that's where the waking up on the wrong side of the bed came from, because if you woke up on the left side, you're just attracting negativity into your day. Come on, don't do that. Wake up on the right side. And now we got the be-all and end-all, which the description of what the be-all and end-all means pretty much sums up to the way I feel about idioms at this point. It's, reaching the limit of something. It's the be-all and end-all. You can't go past it. It's either the best part or the most important part of a situation also, but it also describes limits in a way. And this was originally written in Macbeth because it's by Shakespeare, and this really just blows my mind because idiomatic expressions are used as such like a way to portray a bunch of different emotions in different ways and just like references to things. And for Shakespeare to just have so many idioms that people use on like regular basis that like I don't even know that I knew some of them were Shakespeare, but not all of them. Literally half of the idioms in this video were Shakespeare. And that blew my mind. It also just upset me because like why haven't we been able to come up with anything else? Why are we just relying on Shakespeare to carry the weight of idioms for the rest of time? This dude died like 500 years ago. Can we give him a break? Let's make some new ones. Let him, relax. Let him rest in peace. We're still carrying on his labor for the rest of the time. I think we need to pick the slack. Jesus Christ. Anyway, come on. We could do better. Let's give him a break. Okay, bye.